What is it that people who are asking about Kentucky wines want to know?
A lot of times you can't compare a California, say, Chardonnay to a Kentucky Chardonnay. They're going to be different.
Kentucky is now the 6th leading producer of wine again in the country.
You can compare, different parts of Kentucky wines together.
With the medals that wineries in Kentucky are winning now, golds, double golds in some of the state and international competitions, I think that people are recognizing the quality of those Kentucky wines. And so we're kind of coming back with quality over quantity.
The tobacco industry is not as large as it used to be. And Kentucky has tried to move away from tobacco, and they're actually promoting people to grow grapes.
People come from California, Texas, Florida, North Carolina because they've heard of Kentucky wines. They're traveling through Kentucky, so they make those stops. They look up on the internet, they find us.
Kentucky was known for their grapes before Prohibition, and once Prohibition hit, a lot of people pulled up their grapevines. Well, I think it's time for us to go ahead and start planting our grapevines again.
After Prohibition, New York, Kentucky, the other wine-producing states, most of those vines and vineyards were lost because nobody maintained them if you weren't going to be able to, to make. A lot of the Concord stuff stayed for jellies and jams, but if anything, there was just too much capacity. So a lot of that was lost.
Kentucky has so much beauty in it. And like I said, when we first stopped by this property, it was just so beautiful, it was calling out to us.
So I think Kentucky is just one of the perfect states for raising grapes, always has been. Our only problem is the moisture, which you don't get out in California. And they don't think about some of the things we have to think about.
Now there's over 60 vineyards.
Yeah, the last time Tom Cottrell came and talked to us, he was saying there's at least 65 licenses in the state of Kentucky.
I bought the vineyard in December, and so my first exposure was that I kept the founder on, and I was his apprentice in the first year. And I said, every month, starting in January, you teach me everything I need to know that happens in January. Probably didn't want to hear the real story from George, who I bought it from, because if I had, I probably might not have bought it, and I was convinced that I wanted it.
Well, I think what happened is, we started making our wine in our basement, and besides the passion of it, it's just something that we love so much that we wanted to share it with people.
Well, I've been a physician all my life, but I have kind of an unusual career of starting out in art, and met my wife in art, and she went on to law school and I went on to medical school, but I never kind of lost that creative urge to be part of a creative force, and medicine is somewhat limiting in that. You don't want to be too creative in medicine.
And one of the things that we try to do here is not just make the wine, but educate people about the wines that we make.
I grew up on a farm in central Kentucky between Richmond and Berea, and milked cows and raised pigs and hated it.
Everything is done by hand. We have no automation whatsoever. And that's one of the unique things. We can definitely say with 100% certainty that every single bottle of wine that comes out here, our hands have been laid on that bottle. We're
one of the smallest Kentucky small farm wineries, and it's one of those things that it's hard to get the calculus right on grapes coming in, wine being made, wine going out, and survival.
We bottle it ourselves, we cork it ourselves, we wax it ourselves, we put the labels on ourselves. Everything's done manually.
And we use all Kentucky oak barrels. We have a Cooper that's up in Louisville. His dad was an Irish guy that came over in the early 60s, bought a cooperage that had been there for 100 years.
This has sort of been a work in progress. Some of the varieties we put in didn't do well. We've replaced them with others. Pretty much that's where we're running right now. And I think we're going to expand for a while, and we're going to go ahead and try to keep going with what we currently have.
We figure if we're a Kentucky winery, then we don't need French Burgundy barrels, we need Kentucky oak, and we need to embrace the whole spirit of saying it's Kentucky grapes, Kentucky oak, and we're not trying to be a California winery. We're trying to be a Kentucky winery.
I don't believe that we have enough things here for people to do. There's so many things that people go to Huntington or they go to Lexington for the weekend. We want people to stay here, spend their money here, enjoy what we have here, give them some new opportunities, things that they can do.
And so it becomes a test of sanity sometimes. Of, is this really? Do I need to let those grapes go, or do I need to take a chance? But you know, I said I bought this farm once. I don't want to buy it again in the ultimate way.
We put a lot into this. We put a lot of our sweat into this. When we first bought the property, none of this was here. It is, like I said, it's a gorgeous piece of property.
Well, it's at least a year process from the vine to the bottle. At times, for us, it's a 2+ year process because we would rather have things right. And I think that's one of the things that we're all learning in Kentucky is to be more patient. And it's not an issue of growing grapes, making wine, selling wine, growing grapes. It's not an annual cycle.
You know, we are romantics, I guess. So when we first came here, we planted grapes that we wanted to grow grapes that we wanted to make wine out of. So we foolishly planted Merlot. Well, Merlot doesn't do very well here. We also planted Syrah. So we planted what we liked. Discovered that you can't really do that. You
know, we're so lucky to have the University of Kentucky and their enology program at the University of Kentucky, and experts that will come out and help us and give us advice and help us through the extension service.
Yeah, we've learned, and University of Kentucky's helped us some through that process. And sometimes we listened to them, sometimes we didn't. And sometimes we paid for it too.
So our job is now to educate the rest of Kentuckians about the grapes we grow, the wines we make, and having them kind of go, do you have the Vidal Blanc like we find at our wine festivals?
We were told to begin with that since this was a dry county, that there's no way a winery would go here at all. And I think it was just a matter of letting people know what it was all about, what we wanted to do, and that it wasn't going to be a liquor store, it wasn't going to be a bar or anything like that for people to come in and get drunk or anything like that. Just educating the public of what it is that we were trying to do.
You know, we were at a festival today, and just exciting to see people who are 7 miles from our vineyard, who have never been up here, who thought we had come in from Mars, you know, but they got to taste our wine and just absolutely love it. And the recognition, that's local, because I still think there are people with wine that assume if it's local, it can't be good.
I'm amazed that people will go to Lexington and Louisville and think nothing of it, and they'll come to the winery here and say, oh my gosh, you're so far away.
We're changing that, but I don't think we have changed enough people yet, and so it's just ongoing work of trying to get exposure to the local people. We've had people from 28 states here in the last 3 years, and yet I sometimes have a hard time getting somebody to come 7 miles up from Moorhead.
It was more a matter of people not knowing how to go through the vote and things like that. That was the hardest part. For the most part, yeah, we had a few people that were, I guess, upset with us or had problems with it, but my wife went and explained it to a lot of them, and a lot of them realized we weren't going to be selling beer to little kids and stuff like that. And we were catering to sort of a nice little family agritourism event, and it turned out pretty well. People were supportive, and for the most part, pretty nice.
People are definitely expanding into the winery and vineyard business, and that's what we'd like to see.
I've learned one of the things that a grape is an amazing, resilient vine and plant. You can almost watch the vine grow in real time. It's just fascinating when that bud breaks to watch the length of that grow in the first 2 days.
What the land has given to us, we try and give back to the people. And you know, making wine is one way that we can do that. We educate people about what it is that we do as far as making wine, how we make it, how to taste wine, how to enjoy it with their food. I've
always said that God's the winemaker. You know, I don't think the person who is involved can change that too much. Yeah. If the grapes are good coming out of the vineyard, then you're going to have a good wine as long as you handle it right.
If your livelihood is tied to the land, you know, you are providing for yourself. You're not dependent on people as much. And I think we need to go back to the roots. We need to go back to our roots, where we came from, and supporting the land, taking care of the land more than we do now.
I don't know what to do next year, because it's like I'm learning things that I wasn't expecting to learn.
One of the things that we try to do here is support the local community, whether they be, you know, artists, painters, or, you know, craftsmen. The local community, business, family-owned businesses, things like that. And I think what we need to do is help each other. And by promoting each other's businesses, we help each other that way. And, you know, I think we need to do that. There's so many beauty in Kentucky, especially Eastern Kentucky, that people overlook it.
I think that's our task in the next 10 years, is to have people understand what we're growing, appreciate what we're growing, and then learn what the qualities of that wine made from those grapes are, and then go, oh, that is really, you know, I can see why you want a gold or double gold on that.
I think if we can start promoting ourselves, we would definitely get a lot more agritourism, or just tourism. And once we get tourism into our area, we'll get money into our area to where, you know, we can have better roads, we can have better schools, we can have libraries, and, you know, things like that. People will stay here rather than going to the bigger cities. And that's, you know, just a little bit that we can do. If everyone does that, it would just expand.
I grew up on a farm. I hated it. Soon I left that farm. My dad hated it. Years later, my dad died. I hated God. My daughter led me to the wisdom of Wendell Berry. I was inspired. Soon God led me to a farm. I loved it. It was more work than I ever imagined. I still loved it. I began to share that farm with others. My father loved it. Now I live on the farm with my father. God loves it. Now I'm raised up by a farm. I love God. And that really is kind of agritourism and the winery of sharing your farm with other people.